The first stories in the Holy Bible, chapters 1 to 22, from the book in the Holy Bible called Genesis. About these stories. This book has stories from the first book in the Holy Bible called Genesis. That word Genesis means start. It is the book that tells us how God started everything that is here today. We have only translated the first 22 chapters of Genesis in this Bible. These chapters tell us what happened from the time when God started to make everything until the time when a man called Abraham was alive. We have not yet translated the other 28 chapters. They are about Abraham's kids and grandkids. Genesis was in God's book that the Jewish people had before Jesus came to this earth. That book is now the first part of the Holy Bible, called the Old Testament. Genesis is a very old book. The Jewish people say that Moses wrote it about 3,400 years ago. He was their leader at that time. But Genesis is a very important book for us today. It tells us that God made people and everything else, and it tells us that people went wrong. But it also shows us that God will look after the people that want to be his friends and do what he says. Genesis chapter 1. God made everything. Verse 1.
First of all, a long time ago, God made everything. He made the sky, and he made the earth. He made all the things that are everywhere. The earth didn't have any shape. It didn't have anything. It was covered with deep water. Everything was dark. It was dark all over the water. But God's Spirit moved around on the top of the water.
Day number 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 3.
God said,
I want light.
Straight away, light was shining everywhere. God looked at it, and he saw that it was good. So God split up the light and the dark. He called the light daytime, and he called the dark nighttime. After that all happened, there was nighttime and there was morning time. That was day number 1.
Day number 2. Genesis chapter 1, verse 6.
Then God said,
I want something to split the water in half.
So God made the sky to split the water in half. God left some of the water up high, and he left some of it on the ground. And he put the sky in the middle. And when God made it, he called it sky. After that all happened, there was night time and there was morning time. That was day number 2.
Day number 3. Genesis chapter 1, verse 9.
Then God said,
I want all the water that is on the ground to come together to one place, and I want dry ground to come up.
Then the water moved to the places where God wanted it, and the dry ground came up. God called the dry ground land, and he called that water sea. God looked at the land and the sea, and he saw that everything was good. Then God said,
I want the land to grow all sorts of plants on the earth. I want plants with seeds, and trees with fruit that have seeds inside.
And God made it happen. So all sorts of plants grew on the land, plants with seeds and trees with fruit that have seeds inside. God looked at all those plants, and he saw that everything was good. After that all happened, there was night time and there was morning time. That was day number 3.
Day number 4. Genesis chapter 1, verse 14.
Then God said,
I want some lights in the sky. I want the lights to split up the daytime from the nighttime. They will show the time. They will show the season and the time of the year and the time of day. I will put these lights in the sky to shine on the earth.
So God did that. He made 2 big lights. He made one light brighter than the other light. That bright light shines in the daytime. We call it the sun. The other light shines in the nighttime. We call it the moon. And God made the stars too. God put all those lights in the sky to shine on the earth. One light shines during the day, and another light shines at night. Those lights split the daytime from the nighttime. God looked at those lights, and he saw that everything was good. After that all happened, there was night time and there was morning time. That was day number 4.
Day number 5. Genesis chapter 1, verse 20.
Then God said,
I want the water to be full of fish and all sorts of living things. And I want birds that fly around in the sky above the earth.
So God made all the different sorts of things that live and move in the sea. He made the great big sea animals and a lot of other things that live in the sea. And God made all the different sorts of birds too. God looked at all those things, and he saw that everything was good. God was good to them, and he said to them,
All of you living things will have lots of young ones, so that the sea will be full of fish, and lots of birds will fly around everywhere.
After that all happened, there was night time and there was morning time. That was day number 5.
Day number 6. Genesis chapter 1, verse 24.
Then God said,
I want the land to be full of all different sorts of animals. I want animals that are wild and animals that are not wild. I want lizards and insects and other things that crawl around on the ground.
And God made it happen just like that. God made all the different sorts of animals. The animals that are wild and the animals that are not wild. And he made all the different sorts of lizards and insects and other things that crawl around on the ground. God looked at all those things, and he saw that everything was good. Then God said,
We are going to make people. They will be like us. They will be boss over the fish and everything that lives in the sea. And they will be boss over the birds that fly in the sky. And they will be boss over all the animals that are on the land, the animals that are wild and the animals that are not wild, and all the lizards and insects and other things that crawl around on the ground. People will be boss over all of them.
So God made people to be like himself. He made them man and woman. God was good to them, and he said to them,
You will have lots of kids, and the earth will be full of people. You people will be boss over all the earth. You will be boss over the fish in the sea, and you will be boss over the birds in the sky, and you will be boss over all the animals that live on the land.
Then God said to them,
Look, I made lots of food plants for you. I made plants that have seeds in them, and trees with fruit on them too. You can eat the seeds from those plants and the fruit from those trees. That bush tucker will be your food. And I made green plants too, for all the animals of the earth to eat, and for all the birds of the sky to eat, and for all the lizards and insects and other things that crawl around on the ground to eat too. Everything that breathes air can eat those green plants.
God looked at everything he made, and he saw that all of it was very good. After that all happened, there was night time and there was morning time. That was day number 6.
Genesis chapter 2, day number 7, verse 1.
God finished making everything. He finished making the sky and the earth and everything that is on the earth too. After God finished all that, it was day number 7, and God rested on that day. So God made day number 7 a good and special day. He said,
I've finished making everything now, and I'm resting on day number 7. So day number 7 is a special day.
At first, everything was different. Genesis chapter 2, verse 4.
This story is about the time when God made the earth and the sky. At first, God didn't send any rain on the earth, and there were no people to make the ground right for the plants. So nothing was growing on the earth at that time. Water used to come up from under the ground and wet the top of all the ground.
God made the first man. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7.
God took some dirt and he made a man out of it. Then God breathed into the man's nose, and God's breath gave him life. So that man became a living person.
The Garden in Eden. Genesis chapter 2, verse 8.
Then God made a garden in a place called Eden. It was in the east part of the land, and God put the man in that garden. And God made some trees grow there in that garden. They were pretty, and they had fruit that was good to eat. And God put 2 special trees in the middle of the garden, people eat the fruit of one of those trees, they will stay alive. And if they eat the fruit from the other tree, they will know if the things they do are good or if they are bad. A river started in Eden, and it watered the garden. Then that river flowed out and split up into 4 rivers. The first river was called Pishon. It flowed around the land called Havilah. In that country there was lots of gold. It was really good gold, and there were pretty stones and a good smelling gum that comes from a tree too. The second river was called Gihon. It flowed all around the country called Cush. The third river was called Tigris. It flowed east of the country called Assyria. The fourth river was called Euphrates. God put the man into the garden in Eden and gave him some work to do. He had to look after the garden and make sure all the plants grew strong and healthy.
The special tree. Genesis chapter 2, verse 16.
And God told the man,
You can eat fruit from the trees in this garden. There is only one tree that you can't eat its fruit. You can't eat the fruit from that tree that lets you know if the things you do are good or if they are bad. I'm telling you, if you eat any fruit from that tree, you will die, for sure.
God made the first woman. Genesis chapter 2, verse 18.
and God said,
It is not good for this man to be by himself. I'm going to make somebody else to be a mate for the man, somebody that will be good for him.
And God made all the animals and birds out of dirt from the ground, and he brought them to the man. God wanted the man to give all the animals and birds their names. The man could say any name he wanted for each one, and those names stayed with them. So the man gave each animal a name. He named all the wild animals and all the animals that are not wild, and all the birds. That man's own name was Adam. That name means man. There were lots of animals and birds, but none of them were the right sort of mate that was good for Adam. So God made the man go to sleep. It was a really strong, deep sleep. And while he was asleep, God took out one of his rib bones. Then God closed up the place where that rib was. Then God used the man's rib bone and made a woman from it. After the man woke up, God took the woman over to the man. The man looked at the woman and he said,
This is really good. Now I have a mate. God took out a part of my body and he made it into a mate for me. Yes, he used my rib bone to make her. God made her out of a man's body, so I'm going to call her woman.
That's how God made a woman. He made her out of a man's body. That is the reason why a man will leave his mother and father and marry a woman. The man and his wife will join with each other, and their bodies will be like one body. The man and his wife didn't have any clothes on. They were both naked, but they didn't feel any shame.
Genesis chapter 3. The snake tricked the woman. Verse 1.
God made lots of animals, but the snake was the animal that had the most brains. He was really smart. One day, the snake went to the woman and said to her,
Did God say you can't eat fruit from any of the trees in the garden? Is that true?
The woman said,
No, that's not true. We can eat fruit from those trees there in the garden. God said that there is only one tree that we can't eat from. We can't eat any fruit that comes from one of the trees that is in the middle of the garden. God will not even let us touch that tree. He said that if we eat fruit from that tree, we will die.
The snake said to the woman,
You will not die. God knows what will happen if you eat fruit from that tree. He knows that if you eat fruit from the tree, you will know more things, like God himself. You will know if the things you do are good, or if they are bad.
The man and the woman did the wrong thing. Genesis chapter 3, verse 6.
The woman looked at that tree. It was pretty, and the fruit on that tree looked really good to eat. And she reckoned that if she eats some of that fruit, she will think properly. So the woman got some of that fruit, and she ate it. And she gave some of it to her husband, and he ate that fruit too. Straight away, the man and the woman knew more things. They knew that they were naked, and they felt shame. They wanted to make clothes to cover up their naked bodies. So they picked some big leaves from a tree and sewed the leaves together to make some clothes.
The man and the woman tried to hide from God. Genesis chapter 3, verse 8.
Later on, in the cool part of the day, the man and the woman heard God walking in the garden. So they got behind some trees in the garden to hide from God. God called out to the man.
Where are you?
The man said,
I heard you walking in the garden, and I was frightened, because I'm naked, so I hid from you.
God asked the man,
How do you know that you are naked? Did you eat some of that fruit from the tree that I told you not to eat from?
The man said,
Yes, but it was the woman that you put here with me. She gave me fruit from that tree, so I ate it.
Then God said to the woman,
Why did you do that bad thing?
The woman said,
That snake tricked me. That's the reason why I ate that fruit.
God judged the snake. Genesis chapter 3, verse 14.
Then God said,
Snake, you did the wrong thing, so I will curse you. I will not curse the other animals, but I will curse all you snakes. From now on, you are going to crawl around on your bellies. You will always be down on the ground in the dirt. The woman's kids will hate you, and so will all their kids, and all the people that will be born later on. People will always be your enemies. And snake, your kids will hate the woman's kids, and so will all the snake mob that will be born later on. You snake mob will always be the people's enemies. They will hit your heads, and you will bite their feet.
God judged the woman. Genesis chapter 3, verse 16.
Then God said to the woman,
I'm going to give you a lot of trouble. You are going to have a lot of pain whenever you have a baby. It will hurt you a lot. But you will really want to have a husband, and your husband will be your boss.
God judged the man. Genesis chapter 3, verse 17.
Then God said to the man,
I told you not to eat any fruit from one of the trees in the middle of the garden. But you listened to your wife, and you ate that fruit. So I will curse the ground and make it bad for you. It will never be easy for you to get your food from the plants in the ground anymore. The ground will have lots of rubbish plants and prickles in it. You will work very hard to get your food, so you will get hot and you will sweat a lot, and later on you will die. I made you from the dirt, and after you die, your body will turn back into dirt.
God hunted Adam and Eve out of Eden. Genesis chapter 3, verse 20.
Adam's wife was the first woman, and all the people in the world came from her. So Adam gave her the name Eve. That name means somebody that gives life. God made some clothes from animal skins for Adam and his wife. After that, God said,
These people are like us now. They know what things are good and what things are bad. We have to stop them, so they will not eat fruit from the other tree in the middle of the garden, the tree that makes people stay alive. If they eat that fruit, they will live forever.
So God hunted them out of the garden. To get food, they had to dig the ground and grow plants. You know, God made that man out of the ground, and after they left the garden, that man had to dig that same ground. After God hunted them out of the garden, he made sure that they couldn't get back. He put some of his angel workers to be guards just outside the east side of the garden in Eden. Their job was to stop anybody from getting near the tree that makes people stay alive. They had long knives that were on fire, and they waved those long knives everywhere to keep everyone away.
Genesis chapter 4. Cain and Abel gave thanks to God. Verse 1.
Adam and Eve slept together, like a man does with his wife. And then Eve had a baby boy. Eve said,
God has helped me make another human.
So she gave him the name Cain. That name means make. After that, they had another son, and she gave him the name Abel. Abel grew up, and he looked after sheep and goats all the time. Cain grew up, and he became a gardener. He dug the ground and grew plants for people to eat. One day, Cain brought a gift to give to God. He brought some food from his garden. And Abel brought a gift to give to God too. He gave God some of his young sheep and goats. They were the first ones born to their mothers. Abel brought the best bits of meat from those sheep and goats, and God was happy with Abel and with his gift. But God was not happy with Cain. all with his gift. Then Cain got very angry. His face changed, and he looked very sad. God said to Cain,
"Why are you angry? Why do you look sad? If you do the right thing, I will be happy with you. But if you don't do the right thing, look out. You will always want to do more bad things. But you have to control yourself and stop doing bad things."
After that, Cain went to his brother Abel and said,
"Let's go for a walk."
So Cain and Abel went out bush together. While they were there, Cain hit his brother and killed him dead. Later, God said to Cain,
"Where is your brother Abel?"
Cain said,
"I don't know where my brother is. It's not my job to look after him."
God said to Cain,
"You did a really bad thing. Your brother's blood is on the ground. It's like his blood is calling out to me. It is telling me you killed him. So now I'm going to curse you. You killed your brother, and his blood is on the ground. So I will make the ground bad for you. If you try to grow plants in the ground, nothing will grow for you. You will go away from me, and you will walk around in lots of places, but you will not have a home."
Cain said to God,
"God, you are too hard on me. If you make me leave this land where I grow my food, and if you make me go away from you, and if you make me walk around everywhere so I will not have a home, then somebody will find me and finish me."
God said,
I will not let that happen. I'll tell everybody that if they kill you, then I will punish them 7 times more than I punished you.
So God put a mark on Cain's head so that everybody will know that they can't kill him.
The people born into Cain's family. Genesis chapter 4, verse 16.
After that, Cain went away from God and went to live in a place called Nod. That country was on the east side of Eden. Cain slept with his wife, like married people do together. And then she had a baby boy called Enoch. Cain built a town, and he also called it Enoch, after his son. Enoch grew up, and he had a son called Irad. Irad grew up, and he had a son called Mehujael. Mehujael grew up, and he had a son called Methuselah. Methuselah grew up, and he had a son called Lamech. Lamech grew up, and he married 2 women. One wife's name was Ada, and the other wife's name was Zillah. Lamech's wife Ada had a baby boy called Jabal. Jabal grew up, and he was the first person to go around with mobs of cows and bulls, just living in a tent, not a house. Ada had another son called Jubal. Jubal grew up and was the first person to play musical instruments. He played a harp and a flute. Lamech's other wife, Zillah, had a son called Tubal-Cain. Tubal-Cain grew up and made tools from iron and from a brown metal called bronze. Zillah also had a daughter called Naamah. One day, Lamech said to his 2 wives,
Ada and Zillah, listen to me properly. A young man hit me and hurt me, so I killed him dead. God said that if anyone killed Cain, it will punish that person 7 times more than he punished Cain. I reckon I'm more important than Cain. So if somebody kills me for killing that young man, I reckon God will punish that person 77 times more than he punished Cain.
Adam and Eve had another son. Genesis chapter 4, verse 25.
Adam and Eve slept together again, like a man does with his wife. And they had another son, and they gave him the name Seth. That name means gave. Eve said,
God gave me another son to take the place of Abel, our son that Cain killed.
Seth grew up, and he had a son too, and he gave him the name Enosh. At that time, people started to call God by his special name, Yahweh, when they showed respect to him.
Genesis chapter 5. The people born into Adam's family. Verse 1.
This is the story about Adam's family. You see, when God made people, he made them to be like himself. And he made them men and women. And he called them human beings. And he was good to them. Adam lived a long time. He was 130 years old when he had his son called Seth. He was a human being, just like Adam, his father. After Seth was born, Adam lived for another 800 years, and he had more sons and daughters. He died when he was 930 years old. Seth lived a long time too. He was 105 years old when he had a son called Enosh. Then Seth lived for another 807 years, and he had more sons and daughters. He died when he was 912 years old. Enosh lived a long time too. He was 90 years old when he had a son called Kenan. Then Enosh lived for another 815 years, and he had more sons and daughters. He died when he was 905 years old. Kenan lived a long time too. He was 70 years old when he had a son called Mahalalel. Then Kenan lived for another 840 years, and he had more sons and daughters. He died when he was 910 years old. Mahalalel lived a long time too. He was 65 years old when he had a son called Jared. Then Mahalalel lived for another 830 years, and he had more sons and daughters. He died when he was 895 years old. Jared lived a long time too. He was 162 years old when he had a son called Enoch. Then Jared lived for another 800 years, and he had more sons and daughters. He died when he was 962 years old. Enoch lived a long time too. He was 65 years old when he had a son called Methuselah. Then Enoch lived for another 300 years after Methuselah was born, and he had more sons and daughters. Enoch was always God's friend, and he spent a lot of time with God. One day, when he was 365 years old, he wasn't here on the earth anymore. Nobody could find him anywhere. You see, he didn't die, but God took him straight up to heaven. Methuselah lived a long time too. He was 187 years old when he had a son called Lamech. Then Methuselah lived for another 782 years, and he had more sons and daughters. He died when he was 969 years old. Lamech lived a long time too. He was 182 years old when he had a son. He named his son Noah. That name means help people be happy. Lamech said,
God cursed the ground, so we have to work really hard to dig the ground. But Noah will help us be happy, even though we have to work really hard.
Then Lamech lived for another 595 years, and he had more sons and daughters. He died when he was 777 years old. Noah lived a long time too. After he was 500 years old, he had 3 sons. They were called Shem and Ham and Japheth.
Genesis chapter 6. There were big, strong fighting men. Verse 1.
The people on the earth kept on having lots of kids, and those kids grew up and kept on having more kids. So after some time, there were lots of people on the earth, and some people had very pretty daughters. There were some men that everyone called the sons of God. They looked at the pretty young women. Then they picked out the women they wanted, and they married them. God looked at everything that was happening. He said,
I gave people their breath, but I will not let it stay in them forever. They are just people. They will live for only 120 years.
Those men that were called the sons of God, they slept with the pretty women, like men usually sleep with their wives. And then those women had kids called Nephilim. Those Nephilim kids grew up to be big, strong, fighting men. They were the great fighters in the stories from a long time ago.
People kept on doing bad things. Genesis chapter 6, verse 5.
God looked at the people on the earth, and he saw them doing lots of bad things. He knew the way they were thinking. They were thinking bad things all the time. God saw that the people were very bad. So God was feeling sad. He really felt no good inside. He thought to himself,
I should not have made all these people.
And God said,
These people keep on doing bad things, and that makes me really sad. I'm sorry that I made them. I'm sorry I made everything on the earth. I want to finish up everything. I want to kill all the people I made. And I want to kill all the animals on earth, the big animals and the little animals, and even the animals that crawl around on the ground. And I want to kill all the birds that fly in the sky.
But God looked at the man called Noah, and Noah made God happy.
The story about Noah. Genesis chapter 6, verse 9.
This is the story about Noah and his family. Noah was a good man. He didn't do anything wrong. He was God's friend. And he spent a lot of time with God. He had 3 sons. Their names were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Everyone on the earth kept on doing bad things. They were doing wrong to each other and fighting and hurting each other. God looked down and saw all the bad things that were going on. The people were always doing things that were really bad. So God said to Noah,
Look, everyone is doing bad things and hurting each other. I'm going to kill everyone, and I will finish up everything on the earth.
God told Noah to build a big boat. Genesis chapter 6, verse 14.
Then God said to Noah,
Make a really big boat for yourself. Make it out of that strong wood called cypress. Make some rooms in the boat, and get some tar, and paint the inside of the boat, and paint the outside too. That will keep the water out of the boat. Listen, this is how big I want you to make the boat. It has to be 140 meters long, and 23 meters wide, and 13.5 meters high. I want you to make a roof for that boat, but leave 0.5 meter between the top of the walls and the roof, all around the top of the boat. And put a door in the side of the boat, and make 3 floors in the boat, 1 floor on the bottom, and the other 2 floors upstairs. You see, soon I will bring a lot of flood water, and it will cover the earth, and everything that is on the earth will die. Everything that breathes air will die, wherever they live. But don't worry. I'm making a strong promise to you that I will look after you. I will look after you and your wife and all your kids and their wives too. You all have to go into that boat. And you have to bring lots of animals into that boat too. Every sort of animal that is on the earth has to go into that boat so that they will stay alive in the big flood. Get 1 male and 1 female of each sort of those animals and take them into the boat with you. You see, you have to keep those animals alive. And you have to do the same thing for all those different sorts of birds. Get 1 male and 1 female of all those birds. And you have to do the same thing for all those animals that crawl around on the ground. You have to get 1 male and 1 female of all those animals too. I will get 2 of every sort of animal to come to you, so you can keep them alive. And you have to gather up lots of food, all the sorts of food that people eat, and all the things that animals eat too. You have to put it all in the boat, so that you will all have enough food.
Then Noah did all of that. He did everything that God told him to do.
Genesis chapter 7. God told Noah to get ready for a flood. Verse 1.
After that, God said to Noah,
You are the only man that lives the right way. Get your family and take them into the big boat. You have to take every sort of animal with you into that big boat. You know the sorts of animals that are right for you to give to me? Well, get 7 males and 7 females from each of those sorts of animals. And get all the other animals too. The animals that are not right to give to me. Get 1 male and 1 female from each of those sorts of animals. They all have to go onto the big boat. And the birds too. They have to go onto the big boat. Get 7 males and 7 females from each sort of bird. That's how you can keep those birds and animals alive, so that there will always be birds and animals on the earth. You see, I'm going to send a big rain. That rain will come in 7 days' time. Then it will keep on raining all the time for 40 days. The flood water will come up and wash away all the things that I have made.
So Noah did everything just the way God told him to.
The flood water came. Genesis chapter 7, verse 6.
Noah was 600 years old at the time that he went into the big boat to be safe from the flood. Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and their wives too, they all went into the big boat. And a big mob of animals came to Noah, and he took them into the boat too, just like God told him to. There were all sorts of animals. There were animals that were the right sort to give to God, and animals that were not the right sort to give to God. And there were birds and even animals that crawl around on the ground. And there were males and females of each sort of animal, and they went in 2 at a time. They all came together on that big boat, just like God wanted them to. Then, 7 days later, the flood water came, just like God said. Noah was 600 years old at the time that the flood water came. It came on the 17th day of the 2nd month of that year. Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives too, they all went into the big boat. The names of Noah's sons were Shem and Ham and Japheth, and they each had a wife. They all went into the boat with all the animals. There were wild animals, and animals that are not wild, and animals that crawl around on the ground. And all the birds were there too. There were males and females of every bird and animal on that big boat. All of the different sorts of animals went into that big boat with Noah. They went in 2 at a time, just like God told Noah. And after the last animal went into the boat with Noah and his family, God shut the door. Then, on that same day, the rain came out of the sky. It rained really hard all the time. It was like God opened up a big window in the sky, and rain poured down. And water came up from springs, and from everywhere under the ground too. It kept on raining all the time for 40 days. The flood water kept on getting higher and higher for all those 40 days, and the big boat started to float on the water. The water got deeper and deeper, but that boat was all right. It floated on top of the water, high above the ground. The water got so deep that it covered all the big mountains everywhere. It covered the tops of those mountains with about 7 meters of water. All the people and animals that lived on the earth died. Only the people and animals on that big boat didn't die. The flood water killed all the birds, and it killed all the animals. The wild animals and the animals that are not wild, and it killed all the animals that crawled around on the ground and all the people. They all died, everything that breathed air and lived on the ground. There were no people or animals left on the earth. There were no birds and no animals that crawl around on the ground, and no other animals and no people. God killed them all and washed them away. The only ones that stayed alive were the animals and birds on the big boat with Noah and his family. And that flood went on for a long time. The water covered the earth for 5 months.
Genesis chapter 8. The flood water went down. Verse 1.
And then God thought about Noah and the animals with him in the big boat. And he made a strong wind blow on the flood water to help it to go down. And God stopped the water from coming up from under the ground, and he stopped the rain falling from the sky. The flood water went down slowly, and after 5 months, it was a lot lower. So 5 months after the start of the flood, the big boat got stuck in the mountains called the Ararat Mountains. The flood water kept going down for the next 2.5 months. And then they saw the tops of the mountains sticking up out of the water.
Noah let some birds go out of the boat to fly around. Genesis chapter 8, verse 6.
Then, 40 days later, Noah opened a window in the big boat. He wanted to find out if the water went down and if a bird could find some dry ground. So he let a crow go out of the window. The crow didn't come back to the big boat. It just kept on flying around until the flood waters dried up. So Noah let a pigeon go out of the window. But the flood water still covered the ground, and the pigeon couldn't find a place to stop and rest. So it went back to the big boat. Noah held out his hand for the bird, and he helped it back into the boat. Noah waited for 7 more days, and then he let the pigeon go out of the boat again. This time, the pigeon came back just before night time. It had a fresh leaf from an olive tree in its mouth. Then Noah knew the flood water was getting lower, and the trees were growing again. Noah waited 7 more days. Then he sent the pigeon out again. This time, the pigeon didn't come back to the big boat.
Everyone left the boat. Genesis chapter 8, verse 13.
Noah was 601 years old at that time. The water was still going down, and on the first day of the new year, Noah took off some of the roof from the big boat and looked around. He could see that the ground was getting dry. After another 2 months, the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah,
You can go out of the big boat now. You can all go out, you and your wife and your sons and their wives too. and bring all the animals out of the big boat. Bring out all the animals, and the birds, and the animals that crawl around on the ground. They can all come out, so they can live on the earth and have lots of young ones, so that they will go everywhere on the earth.
So Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives, they all came out of the big boat, and all the animals and all the birds came out of the big boat too. They came out in groups. Each sort of animal was in its family group.
Noah said, "Thank you to God." Genesis chapter 8, verse 20.
Then Noah piled up stones to make a special table with a flat top. And he got one of each sort of animal and bird that are the right sorts to give to God. And he killed them. And he put them on that special table. And he burned them there. He did that to give them to God, to say thank you to God. God smelled the meat cooking on that stone table, and he was happy. Then God said to himself,
People always just want to do bad things. They do that all their lives, from when they are little kids right up until the time they die. But I will never again punish them the same way that I did this time. I will never again finish up everything that breathes air, and I will never again curse the earth. While the earth is still here, the seasons will stay the same. There will always be day and night, and every year there will be a hot time and a cold time, a wet season and a dry season. There will always be a right time to plant seeds for food, and a right time to get the food from those plants.
Genesis chapter 9. God promised not to cover the earth with water again. Verse 1.
God was good to Noah and his sons. God said to them,
I want you to have lots of kids and to fill the earth with people. I'm making you boss over everything that lives on the ground, all the animals and all the birds, and I'm making you boss over the fish and everything in the sea too. They will be frightened of you. I gave you bush tucker to eat, and now I'm giving you meat to eat too. You can eat anything that moves. But I'm telling you this about blood. Blood is important. It keeps a body alive. So don't eat any blood. You have to drain the blood out of the animal before you eat it. Don't eat any meat that still has the blood in it. And I will punish anyone and anything that kills a person dead. If an animal kills somebody, it has to die. And it is the same for a person that kills another person. That murderer has to die. You see, I made people to be like myself, so they are important. So if somebody kills another person dead, you have to kill that murderer dead. But I want you, mob, to have lots of kids, so that there will be lots of people everywhere on the earth.
Then God told Noah and his sons,
I promise this to you and to your kids and to all the people that will be born later on. And I promise this to all the animals that live on the earth too, all the birds and all the wild animals and all the animals that are not wild. I promise this to all of the animals that came out of the big boat with you. I promise that there will never again be a real big flood of water that will finish up everything on the earth. There will never again be a big flood that kills all the people and animals.
God sent a rainbow to help people remember what he promised. Genesis chapter 9, verse 12.
And God said,
I will give you something to help you remember what I promised to you and to all of the animals living on the earth, and to your kids, and to all the people that will be born later on. It is my rainbow, up there in the sky. I'm putting it there to help you remember what I promised to you and to everything that lives on the earth. I promised that I will never again send a real big flood to finish up everything on the earth. Sometimes I will send rain clouds into the sky, and there will be a rainbow in the clouds too. Then I will remember what I promised to you and to all the living animals, and there will never again be a flood that will kill all of the animals on the earth. Every time I look at the rainbow in the clouds, I will remember what I promised to you and to all the animals on the earth. I will never break that promise. It will last forever.
and God said to Noah,
This is very important. That rainbow will help you remember that I myself promised that for every living thing.
Noah got drunk. Genesis chapter 9, verse 18.
Noah had 3 sons. Their names were Shem, and Ham, and Japheth. They were on the boat with Noah, and after they got off the boat, they had their own sons and daughters. One of Ham's sons was called Canaan, and there were lots of other sons and daughters too. And later, all those kids had more kids, and it kept going like that. All the people in the world are from Noah's family. Soon after Noah came out of the big boat, he started growing a garden. He planted some grapevines, and they grew some grapes. Then he made some wine from those grapes. Noah drank some of that wine and got drunk. He took his clothes off and went to sleep in his tent. Ham, Canaan's father, went into the tent and saw his naked father. Ham didn't respect his father, so he went outside and told his brothers what happened. Shem and Japheth got a coat. They held it over their shoulders and walked backwards into the tent. They put the coat on their father to cover his naked body. They didn't turn around and look at their naked father. After Noah woke up, he found out what Ham, his youngest son, did to him. Then Noah said,
I'm going to curse Canaan, Ham's son. He will have to work hard for his relatives without pay. God is good. I'm going to ask God to look after Shem, but Canaan will work hard for him with no pay. I'm going to ask God to give Japheth a big country. Japheth and Shem will share that country, and Canaan will work hard for them with no pay.
Noah lived for another 350 years after the flood. He died when he was 950 years old.
Genesis chapter 10. The story about Noah's sons and their families. Verse 1.
This is the story about Noah's sons and their families. His sons were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And after that big flood, they had kids too.
The tribes from Japheth's family. Genesis chapter 10, verse 2.
A long time later, the people that were born into Japheth's family split up into different tribes and nations. Each tribe had their own language and their own country. Japheth's sons were Gomer and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tyrus. The tribes that were from Japheth's son Gomer and his family were the Ashkenaz mob, and the Riphath mob, and the Tugumah mob. The tribes that were from Japheth's son Javan and his family were the Elisha mob, and the Tarshish mob, and the Kit mob, and the Rodan mob. Javan's people lived near the sea.
The tribes from Ham's family. Genesis chapter 10, verse 6.
The people that were born into Ham's family split up into different tribes too, and each tribe had their own language and their own country. Ham's sons were Cush, and Egypt, and Put, and Canaan. The tribes that were from Ham's son Cush and his family were the Seba mob, and the Havilah mob, and the Sabta mob, and the Rama mob, and the Sabteka mob. And the tribes that were from Rama and his family were the Shebab mob and the Dedan mob. One of the men that was born into Cush's family was called Nimrod. After he grew up, he became a strong fighter. He was the best hunter in the world too. Whenever people talked about good hunters, they said things like this.
That man is a really good hunter. He is just like Nimrod, the best hunter in the world.
Nimrod controlled the country called Babylonia, and he was the boss over the cities called Babel and Erech and Akkad. After that, Nimrod got the country called Assyria, and he built the towns called Nineveh and Rehoboth-ir and Calah. Then he built a big town called Rezin. It was between Nineveh and Calah. The tribes that were from Ham's son Egypt and his family were the Lud mob, and the Anam mob, and the Lahab mob, and the Naphtah mob, and the Partherus mob, and the Kaslah mob, and the Kaphtor mob. Later, the Philistia nation were from the Kaphtor mob. Ham's youngest son was called Canaan. Canaan had 2 sons. His first son was called Sidon, and his other son was called Heth. The tribes that were from Canaan and his family were the Jebus mob, and the Amor mob, and the Girgash mob, and the Hiv mob, and the Arek mob, and the Sin mob, and the Arvad mob, and the Zema mob, and the Hamath mob. All those tribes were from Canaan, and they went as far north as a town called Sidon, and as far south as a town called Gaza, and as far east as the towns called Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Zeboim near Lasha. They were all the tribes and nations that were from Ham and his family. Each tribe had their own country and their own language.
The tribes from Shem's family. Genesis chapter 10, verse 21.
Shem was Japheth's older brother. The Eber mob are from Shem's family. Shem's sons were Elam and Ashur and Arphaxad and Lud and Aram. The tribes that were from Shem's son Aram and his family were the Uz mob, and the Hul mob, and the Gether mob, and the Mash mob. Shem's son Arphaxad had a son called Shelah, and he had a son called Eber. Eber had 2 sons. The first son was called Peleg, and his young brother was called Joktan. That name, Peleg, means split up. He got that name because all the people split up into different tribes after he was born. The tribes that were from Eber's son Joktan's family were the Almadad mob and the Shalef mob, and the Hazarmaveth mob, and the Jerah mob, and the Hadaram mob, and the Uzal mob, and the Dikla mob, and the Obal mob, and the Abimael mob, and the Sheba mob, and the Ophir mob, and the Havilah mob, and the Jobab mob. All of those people were born into Joktan's family. Their country was in the mountains in the east, the country you see if you go from Mesha all the way to Sephar. They were all the tribes and nations that were from Shem's family. Each tribe had their own country and their own language. That is the big list of all the families and tribes that were born into Noah's family. They split up into their own nations and they went everywhere after the big flood.
Genesis chapter 11. People tried to build a tall building called Babel. Verse 1.
You know, at first everyone talked the same language. And as people moved from place to place in the east, they got to some flat country in Babylonia, and they stayed there. Then they said to each other,
Look, we can make bricks here. So come on, let's do that. We will bake them properly so that they are good, strong bricks. And we will use them to build a city here. So come on, let's build a big, tall building in that city. It will be so tall that it will go right up into the sky.
You see, they had bricks and tar instead of stones and cement, and they said,
If we do that, everyone will think we are smart. Then we will not go and live all over the earth, but we will stay together right here.
God made people talk in different languages. Genesis chapter 11, verse 5.
So the people started to build a city in a really tall building, and God came down to look at those things. He said,
These people can all talk to each other in the same language, so they can do anything they want. If they keep on going this way, nothing will stop them from doing anything. Come on, let's go down to these people, and we will make them talk in different languages. Then they will not understand each other, and they will be all mixed up. They will not work things out with each other, so they will not keep on building this city.
So God made all the people talk in different languages. None of them could understand anything the other people were saying, so they stopped building their big city. They all left that city and went to live in lots of different places all over the world. That's how God got people to be in different tribes all over the world. And they called that city Babel. That means mixed up. They gave it that name because God mixed up their languages at that time.
The story of Shem's family. Genesis chapter 11, verse 10.
This is the story about Shem's family. Shem was 100 years old when he had a son called Arphaxad. That was 2 years after the big flood. Shem lived for 500 years after he had Arphaxad, and he had more sons and daughters. Arphaxad was 35 years old when he had a son called Shelah. Arphaxad lived for 403 years after he had Shelah, and he had more sons and daughters. Shelah was 30 years old when he had a son called Eber. Shelah lived for 403 years after he had Eber, and he had more sons and daughters. Eber was 34 years old when he had a son called Peleg. Eber lived for 430 years after he had Peleg, and he had more sons and daughters. Peleg was 30 years old when he had a son called Reu. Peleg lived for 209 years after he had Reu, and he had more sons and daughters. Reu was 32 years old when he had a son called Serug. Reu lived for 207 years after he had Serug, and he had more sons and daughters. Serug was 30 years old when he had a son called Nahor. Serug lived for 200 years after he had Nahor, and he had more sons and daughters. Nahor was 29 years old when he had a son called Terah. Nahor lived for 119 years after he had Terah, and he had more sons and daughters. Terah had 3 sons after he was 70 years old. Their names were Abram, Nahor, and Haran.
The story of Terah's family. Genesis chapter 11, verse 27.
This is the story about Terah's family. Terah had 3 sons called Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran had a son called Lot, and he also had 2 daughters called Milcah and Iscah. After that, Haran died, while his father, Terah, was still alive. He died in Ur, in Chaldea country, the place where he was born. Nahor, Haran's brother, married Milcah, and Abram married a woman called Sarai. But Abram and Sarai didn't have any kids. Sarai just couldn't have a baby. Then Terah went away from Ur in Chaldea country, and he took some of his family with him. They were his son Abram and Abram's wife Sarai, and his grandson Lot. They all left Ur, and they started to go to the country called Canaan. But they stopped halfway at a place called Haran, and they stayed there. Terah lived until he was 205 years old. Then he died there in Haran.
Genesis chapter 12. God picked Abram. Verse 1.
This story about Abram started when God said to him,
Abram, I want you to leave your country, your father's family and all your relatives, and to go to the country that I will show you. And I will give you a big family, and they will become a great nation. And I will do good things for you and your family, and I will make your mob strong. Then everyone will know about you and your family, and everyone will respect you. And you and your family will do good things for other people. If anyone does good things for you and your family, I will do good things for them. But if anyone does bad things to you, and if they make trouble for you and your family, I will curse them and make trouble for them. I will use your family to do good things for all the families in the world.
Abram and his family went to Canaan country. Genesis chapter 12, verse 4.
Abram was 75 years old when he left a town called Haran and went to the country called Canaan. That was the country that God told him to go to. He took his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot with him. He also took all the things and all the workers that they got in Haran, and they all went to the new country called Canaan. Abram and everyone with him walked through that new country, and they went to a town called Shechem, and they camped there near a big tree at a place called Moreh. The people that lived in that country were called the Canaan mob, and they didn't know God. God showed himself to Abram there, and he said to him,
I will give this country to your son, and to all the people that will be born into his family later on.
So Abram piled up stones to make a table with a flat top. It was a special place for him to burn an animal to show right respect to God. Later on, Abram and his mob left Shechem, and they went south to the hill country that was on the east side of a town called Bethel. And they camped between Bethel and another town called Ai. Bethel was to the west of his camp, and Ai was to the east. Then Abram piled up stones there to make another special table, and he burned animals on it to show respect to God. He prayed to God, and he called God by his special name, Yahweh. After that, Abram and his mob kept going south to the dry desert country.
Abram and his family went to Egypt. Genesis chapter 12, verse 10.
At that time, there wasn't much food in that country. Everyone was short of food. So Abram and everyone with him went south to live in another country called Egypt. Just before they got to Egypt, Abram said to his wife Sarai,
You are a really beautiful woman. I reckon the men in Egypt will see you, and they will say, That beautiful woman is Abram's wife. Let's kill Abram so that we can have her for ourselves. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. So listen, you have to tell everyone that you are my sister. Then they will be good to me, and they will not kill me.
And that's what happened. They got to Egypt, and the people there looked at Sarai, and they saw that she was really beautiful. Some of them worked for the big boss of Egypt, and they told him,
Sarai is really beautiful.
So that big boss took her to live in his house. That boss was very good to Abram, because he thought that Abram was Sarai's brother. He gave Abram sheep and goats and cows and bulls and donkeys and camels, as well as men and women that had to work for Abram. God was not happy because Sarai was living with the big boss of Egypt. So God made him really sick, and God made everyone that lived in his house really sick too. Then that big boss found out that Sarai was already Abram's wife, and he got really wild. He sent somebody to get Abram, and he said to Abram,
"You did a really bad thing to me. You tricked me. You didn't tell me that Sarai was your wife. You said, 'She is my sister,' and you let me marry her. Now, here is your wife. Take her back and then get out of my country."
Then the big boss told his soldiers,
"Get Abram and Sarai and everything they own and all their workers and send them out of Egypt. Send them away and do it right now."
So his soldiers did that. They sent Abram and his mob away from Egypt.
Genesis chapter 13. Abram and his nephew Lot split up. Verse 1.
So Abram, Sarai, and Lot left Egypt and went back to the dry desert country. They took everything they owned and all their workers. Abram was a very rich man. He had a lot of silver and gold and a big mob of animals. They were in that dry desert country for a while. Then they went north from place to place until they got back to the town called Bethel. They camped in the same place that they camped at before. It was between Bethel and the town called Ai. That was the place where Abram built a special stone table to burn animals, to show respect to God. After Abram got back there, he prayed to God, and he called God by his special name, Yahweh. Abram and his nephew Lot were still together, and Lot also had a big mob of sheep and goats and cows and bulls. And he had a lot of tents for all his workers too. But there was a problem. There were other people already living in that country. They were called the Canaan mob and the Periz mob, and they had animals too. And all those animals needed grass and water, as well as Abram's animals and Lot's animals too. But there wasn't enough grass and water in that place for all those animals. So Abram's workmen and Lot's workmen started to argue and fight with each other about whose animals got the grass and water. Then Abram said to Lot,
I don't like this trouble. You and me, we are family, and I don't want trouble between us. And I don't want our workmen to argue and fight with each other. Look, there is a lot of country here. Just look around and you will see that there's plenty of country for both of us. So I reckon we have to split up. I want you to pick the part of the country you want, and then I will go somewhere else. If you pick the country to the east, then I will go to the country to the west. But if you pick the west country, then I will go to the east country.
Lot looked to the east, towards a town called Zor, in the flat country around the Jordan River. He saw that the flat country had plenty of grass and water. It looked just like God's garden and like the country in Egypt. That was before God burned up the towns in the flat country called Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot picked the flat country around the Jordan River to the east. Then Abram did what he promised, and he went to the country called Canaan. In that way, Lot's mob and Abram's mob went to different places, and there was no more trouble between their workmen. Lot went to the flat country around the Jordan River. There were some towns there, and Lot camped near the town called Sodom. The people that lived in Sodom were very bad. They were always going against God, and they did bad things all the time.
God made a promise to Abram. Genesis chapter 13, verse 14.
Then, after Lot left, God said to Abram,
Look at all the country around you. Look to the north, and to the south, and to the east, and to the west. I will give you all the country that you can see. Later on, you will have a son, and lots of people will be born into his family, and they will own all this country forever. Look at the ground you are standing on. It has lots of little bits of dirt. Nobody can count all those little bits of dirt on the ground. And just like that, nobody will be able to count all the people that will be in your family later on. All right, Abram, I want you to get up and walk all around the country that I'm giving you, and look at it all properly.
So Abram went to the big trees that belonged to a man called Mamre, near a town called Hebron, and he camped there. He piled up stones there and made another special table with a flat top, so that he could burn animals to show respect to God.
Genesis chapter 14. Soldiers grabbed Lot and his family and took them away. Verse 1.
This story is about the people in the flat country, and it started before Lot went to live near the town called Sodom. There were 5 tribes in that flat country at that time, and each tribe had a leader. These were the 5 tribes and their leaders. A tribe called Sodom, and their leader was called Birah. A tribe called Gomorrah, and their leader was called Bishah. A tribe called Admah, and their leader was Shinab. A tribe called the Zebo mob, and their leader was Shemaber. A tribe called Zor. They are also called Bela. There were another 4 tribes in the country to the east. These were those 4 tribes and their leaders. A tribe called Elam, and their leader was Kedorlaomer. A tribe called Babylonia, and their leader was called Amraphel. A tribe called Elisah, and their leader was called Arioch. A tribe called the Goy mob, and their leader was Tidal. And Kedorlaomer was the boss over those 4 tribes in the east. Those 4 tribes sent their soldiers to fight the other 5 tribes, and the 4 tribes from the east won. So Kedorlaomer became the boss over the other 5 tribes too. Those 5 tribes let him be their boss for 12 years. Then, the next year, their leaders told Kedorlaomer that they didn't want him to be their boss anymore. Kedorlaomer got really angry. And the next year, he got soldiers from the 4 tribes in the east, and they went to fight those 5 tribes. On the way to that fight, Kedorlaomer's soldiers had other fights with some other tribes, and they won all those fights. They beat the Rephaim tribe at a place called Ashtaroth Karnaim, and they beat the Zuz tribe at a place called Ham. And they beat the Em tribe at a place called Shavai Kiriathaim. And they beat the Hor tribe in the hill country called Edom. They chased the Hor soldiers all the way to a place called El Paran, near the desert. Then Kedorlaomer and the soldiers from the east, they all went back to a place called En Mishpat. Another name for that place is Kadesh. Then Kedorlaomer and his mob fought the Amalek tribe and beat them and took control of their country. Then they fought the Amor tribe in Hazazon, Tamar country, and beat them too. While Kedorlaomer and his mob were fighting those other people, the 5 tribes that didn't want Kedorlaomer to be their boss, they went to the valley called Siddim. Today there is salt water in that valley, and we call it the Dead Sea. The soldiers of those 5 tribes got ready there to fight against Kedorlaomer and his 4 tribes from the east. So when Kedorlaomer and his mob got to that Siddim valley, there was a big fight. Kedorlaomer and his mob won that fight. They beat those 5 tribes, and the soldiers all ran away. In that flat country, there were lots of holes in the ground that were full of sticky black stuff called tar. So when the soldiers from the 5 tribes ran away, some of them fell into those holes, but the rest of them ran up into the hills. So Kedorlaomer and his soldiers went to Sodom and Gomorrah, and they grabbed all the people that lived there. And they took everything the people owned, even their food. And then they started to go back to their own country. At that time, Abram's nephew Lot lived in Sodom. So the soldiers grabbed Lot too, and his family, and all their things. Those soldiers took all of Lot's mob away with them.
Abram saved Lot and his family. Genesis chapter 14, verse 13.
A man got away from Kedorlaomer and his mob, and he went and told Abram that they got Lot. At that time, Abram was living near the big trees that belonged to a man called Mamre. Abram was a good friend of Mamre, and also of Mamre's 2 brothers. Their names were Eshcol and Aner. Mamre and his brothers belonged to the Amor tribe, and Abram belonged to the Hebrew tribe, but they all looked after each other. Abram had 318 men that knew how to fight. They worked for Abram all their lives, and Abram really trusted them. So Abram got those men, and Mamre, Eshcol and Aner got their fighting men, and they all went to fight Kedorlaomer and his soldiers. They followed them, and they found them at a place to the north called Dan. Then, in the night time, Abram split up all the fighting men into groups, and they attacked Kedorlaomer and his soldiers. Abram and his men won that fight, and they chased those other soldiers all the way to a place called Hobah, north of Damascus town. That's how Abram's mob saved Lot and all the women. And the other people from the towns called Sodom and Gomorrah, and they got all their things too. Then they all started to go back south.
Abram met Melchizedek. Genesis chapter 14, verse 17.
After Abram's mob beat Kedorlaomer and his mob, and while they were going back south on their way home, the leader of Sodom went out to meet Abram in the valley called Shaveh. Another name for that place is the valley that belongs to the leader. There was a town in that country called Salem, and the boss over that town was called Melchizedek. He was also a leader of God's ceremonies. He worked for God, the one that is more powerful than any other god. Well, Melchizedek also went out to meet Abram and his men, and he gave them some bread and some wine. Then Melchizedek prayed for Abram. He said,
God, you are more powerful than any other God. You are the one that made heaven and earth. I'm asking you to be really good to Abram. I want everyone to say that you are great and more powerful than any other God. You are the one that helped Abram fight with his enemies and win.
Then Abram got all the things he got after the fight, the things that used to belong to the Sodom and Gomorrah mob, and he split those things up into 10 groups, and he gave one of those groups of things to Melchizedek. Then the leader of Sodom said to Abram,
I only want my people back. You can keep those other things.
But Abram said,
I made a strong promise to my God, the one that is more powerful than any other God, and the one that made heaven and earth. I promised that I will not take anything that belongs to you. I will not even take a bit of string or anything that belongs to you. You see, I don't want you to tell everyone that you gave me a lot of things and made me rich. No, the only thing that I will keep is the food that I ate and the food that my fighting men ate. And these men, Mamre and Anna and Eshcol and their fighting men, they helped me save your people and your things too. So you can give them some of those things.
Genesis chapter 15. God promised to give Abram a son. Verse 1.
Later on, after Abram saved Lot, Abram had a dream, and God talked to him in that dream. God said,
Abram, don't be frightened. I will always keep you safe, so that nobody can ever hurt you, and I am going to give you lots of good things.
But Abram said,
Yes, God, you are very powerful. But look, I've got no son, so it doesn't matter what you give me. You haven't given me the one thing I really want. You haven't given me any kids. So when I die, one of my workmen will get all my things. His name is Eliezer. He is from Damascus.
Then Abram heard God talk to him again. God said,
I tell you, that workman will not get all your things after you die. I am going to give you a son, and he will get all your things after you die.
Then God took Abram outside and said,
Look up at the sky and try to count all those stars. There are a lot of stars. You can't count them all. Well, you will have a son, and later on lots of people will be born into his family, and later on they will be a real big family. And just like nobody can count the stars, nobody will be able to count all your family.
And Abram believed what God said, so God was really happy with him and told him,
You believe me, so now I'm saying you are properly good, like you never did anything wrong.
God did a ceremony to make Abram sure about his promises. Genesis chapter 15, verse 7.
Then God said to Abram,
I am your God. I am the one that brought you out of your home country, from the town called Ur, in Chaldea country. And I am going to give you this country here. It will be yours. You will own all this country.
Abram said,
I know that you are very powerful, God, but how can I be really sure that I will get all this country?
So God said to Abram,
Bring me a cow that hasn't had a baby, and a female goat, and a male sheep. All those animals have to be 3 years old. And I want you to bring me 2 different sorts of pigeons too.
Then Abram did what God told him. He killed those animals and birds, and he cut the animals in half. He put the halves of each animal on the ground in 2 lines facing each other. But he didn't cut the birds in half. Then some hawks flew down and tried to eat the animals, but Abram chased them away. While the sun was going down, Abram went to sleep. It was a strong, deep sleep. Then Abram had something like a dream. It was really dark for him, and he felt really frightened. God said to Abram,
I want you to know for sure what will happen after you get really old. You don't have to worry about anything. You see, you will live to be a very old man, and then, when you are dying, you will feel good inside, and your family will bury you right here in this country. But I have to tell you something. After you die, your family will leave this country and move to another country that belongs to other people. Your family will live in that country, and later on, the other people in that country will make your family like prisoners, and your family will have to work very hard for them. Those people will do really bad things to your family for 400 years. After that, I will save your family from that hard time, and I will punish those people for doing bad things to your family. Then your family will leave that country, and they will take a lot of animals and things with them. They will be really rich. And I will bring your family back here to this country. You see, the Amor tribe that are here in this country now, they do really bad things, and they are getting worse and worse. But I will not punish them yet. I will punish them later, after your grandkids grow up and have grandkids. Then I will do payback to the mob in this country for the bad things that they do. I will take their country from them, and I will give it to your family.
That's what God told Abram. After the sun went down and it was dark, Abram saw a bucket full of fire, with smoke coming out of it. He saw a burning stick with it. That bucket and stick moved along between the halves of those animals that Abram killed. That's how God showed Abram that he was really going to do everything that he promised. God said to him again,
I am going to give your family all this country, from the river in Egypt in the south, right up to the big river called Euphrates in the north. These are the tribes in this country now: the Ken tribe, the Keniz tribe, the Cadmon tribe, the Heth tribe, the Periz tribe, the Repha tribe, the Amor tribe, the Canaan tribe, the Girgash tribe, the Jebus tribe. I will take this country away from all those tribes, and I will give it to your family.
God promised that to Abram.
Genesis chapter 16. The story about Hagar and Ishmael. Verse 1.
Abram and Sarai lived in that Canaan country, and after they were there for 10 years, they still had no kids. Sarai had a woman from Egypt working for her called Hagar. She was Sarai's slave. That means Sarai owned Hagar, and Hagar had to do everything that Sarai told her to do. Sarai was sad because she had no kids, but she got an idea about how to get a baby for herself. So she said to Abram,
God has stopped me from having my own kids. But listen, I want you to sleep with Hagar like she is your wife. You see, she belongs to me. So if she has a baby, that baby will really belong to me.
So Abram did that, just like Sarai said. He slept with Hagar like she was his wife. Then Hagar found out that she was going to have a baby. So she started rubbishing Sarai all the time because Sarai didn't have any kids. So Sarai said to Abram,
I blame you for this trouble. I gave Hagar to you, and now she's going to have a baby, and she is rubbishing me all the time. I reckon God knows that I am right and you are wrong.
But Abram said to Sarai,
Hagar belongs to you. You are her boss, so do whatever you want with her.
Then Sarai started to treat Hagar in a really bad way. So Hagar left Abram and Sarai's camp and ran away. Hagar started walking through the desert, along the road that went to a town called Shur, near Egypt. She sat down next to a waterhole there in the desert. God's angel messenger went to her there. He said,
Hagar, you belong to Sarai. So why are you sitting out here in the desert? Where are you going?
Hagar said,
I'm running away from my boss, Sarai. She is too hard on me.
God's angel messenger said to her,
Don't do that. Go back to your boss and do what she says.
And the angel also said,
God is going to give you a really big family. You will have a son, and later on, lots of people will be born into his family, and they will be a real big family, so that nobody will be able to count all those people.
The angel said,
You are going to have a baby boy, and you will name him Ishmael, because that name means God listens. You see, God listened to you. He heard about your trouble, and he will help you. And Ishmael, your son, he will live like a wild donkey. He will go anywhere he wants to, and he will fight against everybody, and everybody will fight against him. He will not live close to his relatives.
Then Hagar said to herself,
I have seen the God that sees me, and he looks after me.
So she gave God a name. She called him the God that sees me. So that's why people call that waterhole the waterhole that belongs to the one that is alive and sees me. That waterhole is between a place called Kadesh and a place called Bered. Soon after that, Hagar had a baby boy, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old at the time when Ishmael was born.
Genesis chapter 17. God made an agreement with Abram. Verse 1.
Later on, when Abram was 99 years old, God showed himself to Abram and said,
I am God. I have power over everything. I want you to live my way and always do the right thing. If you do that, I will make an agreement with you, and I will give you a really big family. You see, you will have a son, and later on lots of people will be born into his family, and they will be a real big family.
Abram got down on his knees and put his face near the ground to show respect to God. And God said to him,
I promise that I will do this for you. I will give you a big family. Lots of people will be born into your family, so that you will be the father of lots of nations. So I am changing your name from Abram to Abraham.
That name Abram means father that people respect. And that name Abraham means father of lots of people. And God said,
Yes, I will make you the father of lots of nations. I will give you a real big family later on, and they will split up into lots of nations. And some of your people will be the big bosses of those nations. I am making this agreement with you and with all your family that will be born later on. This agreement will last forever. It will never end. I promise that I will be your God forever. You see, you are now living in this country called Canaan, but it doesn't belong to you. But later on, I will give all this country to the people that will be born into your family. They will have this country for themselves forever, and I will be their God.
Then God said to Abraham,
You have to agree to this, you and everyone that will be born into your family later on. You mob have to always respect me and let me be your God. This is what you have to do to show that we made this agreement together. You and every man in your camp has to have the young man operation, and all the men born into your family later on will have to have it too. From now on, every baby boy in your camp has to have that young man operation 8 days after he is born. Every man in your family has to have that operation. And if you buy a man to work for you, he has to have that operation too. Every male person has to have that mark on his body. It will show that we made this agreement, you and me, and that this agreement will last forever. Any man that doesn't have that operation will be breaking our agreement, and I will take him away from your family.
God promised a son to Abraham and Sarah. Genesis chapter 17, verse 15.
Then God said to Abraham,
I am changing your wife's name too. Don't call her Sarai anymore. Call her Sarah.
both of those names mean important woman. And God said,
I will do a good thing for her too. She will have a son, and you will be his father. Yes, I will do that good thing for her. Lots of people will be born into her son's family, and they will split up into lots of nations. And some of those people will be the big bosses of those nations.
Abraham got down on his knees again and put his face near the ground, and he laughed. He thought,
I am nearly 100 years old, and Sarah is nearly 90. We can't have a baby. We are too old.
So then Abraham said to God,
Look, I already have a son, Ishmael. I want you to be good to him, so that he will be that son you are talking about.
God said,
No, not Ishmael. Listen, your wife Sarah will have a baby boy. He will be your son, and you will call him Isaac.
That name Isaac means laugh. And God said,
He will be the son I'm talking about. I will keep this agreement going with him. It will be the same for him and for all the people that will be born into his family later on. This agreement will go on forever. And you asked me to do good things for Ishmael. Well, I listened to you, and I will be good to him too. He will have a big family, and later on, 12 big bosses will be in his family. I will make his mob into a great nation. But my agreement will not be with Ishmael. You see, about this time next year, your wife Sarah will have a baby boy. He will be your son, and you will call him Isaac. And I will make the same agreement with him that I just made with you.
After God said all that, he left Abraham. Then, on that same day, Abraham did a young man operation on every man and every boy in his camp. All Abraham's workmen had that operation. They were the workmen that Abraham bought, and the workmen that were born in his camp. And Abraham and his son Ishmael had that operation too. They all had that operation on the same day. Ishmael was 13 years old, and Abraham was 99 years old when they had that young man operation.
Genesis chapter 18. God promised again to give Abraham and Sarah a son. Verse 1.
Abraham camped for some time near the big trees that belonged to a man called Mamre. One day, God came to Abraham there. It happened like this. Abraham was sitting in the doorway of his tent at the hottest part of the day. And he looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. He got up quickly and he ran to meet them. And he got down on his knees and put his face near the ground to show them respect. Abraham said,
Sirs, please come and sit at my place for a while. Let me look after you. I will get a workman to bring water so that you can wash your feet, and then you can rest in the shade of this tree. And I will get some food for you so that you will be strong enough to keep walking to the place where you are going. I really want to do that for you."
The three men said,
"All right. We'll rest here while you do that."
Then Abraham went quickly into the tent to tell Sarah, and he said,
"Quick, get a big bag of really good flour and make some damper for our visitors."
Then he ran to his mob of cows and picked out a really good young cow. He gave it to one of his workmen and said,
"Quick, kill this young cow and cook it for our visitors."
Then Abraham gave the men the cooked meat and some cheese and milk. And Abraham stood near them in the shade of that tree, and he looked after them while they ate that food. Then they said to Abraham,
"Where is your wife, Sarah?"
Abraham said,
"She is right here in our tent."
"You know, one of those men was God, but he made himself to be like a man when he talked to Abraham. He said,
'I will come back to you at this time next year, and Sarah will have a baby boy.'"
Sarah was at the doorway of the tent, and she listened to them talking. Abraham and Sarah were both very old. She knew she was too old to have a baby. So when she heard him say that, she laughed quietly and said to herself,
"I am too old and worn out to have a baby, and my good boss, my husband, he is old too. If I had a baby, I would be really happy, but I'm too old for that now."
God said,
Why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say to herself, "I can't have a baby now. I'm too old"? I'm telling you, nothing is too hard for me. I am God, just like I said, and this time next year I will come back, and Sarah will have a baby boy.
Sarah was frightened, and so she lied and said,
"I didn't laugh."
But God said,
That's not true. You did laugh.
God talked to Abraham about the town called Sodom. Genesis chapter 18, verse 16.
Then the three men got up to leave, and Abraham went with them for a little while to say goodbye. They went to a hill where they looked down at the town called Sodom. God said,
Maybe I will tell Abraham what I am going to do. You know, Abraham's family will be a big and powerful nation one day, and I will use his family to do good things for all the nations in the world. I have picked him out so that he can teach his family to live my way and do what is good and right. Then I will keep my promise to him.
So God said,
Abraham, I heard about all the really bad things that people do in those two towns down there called Sodom and Gomorrah. A lot of people are telling me that those people are always doing bad things. I will go down and find out if they are really doing those bad things that I heard about.
That's what the man said, the one that had God in him. Then the other two men turned and walked towards Sodom. They left Abraham standing in front of God. Abraham went up close to God and asked him,
Are you going to kill all the good people as well as the bad people? There might be 50 good people that live the right way down there in that town. Will you still finish up that town? Or will you save that town to save those 50 good people? I don't think you will kill 50 good people. I know that you are the judge of everybody in the world, and you always do what is right. I don't think you will kill the good people with the bad people.
God said,
If I find 50 good people in Sodom, I will not finish up that town. I will save that town so that I can save those 50 good people.
Then Abraham said,
Look, I know that I am just a man and you are God, but I'm being brave and I'm talking to you. I want to ask you another question. What if you find only 45 good people in that town? Will you still finish up that town?
God said,
If I find 45 good people there, I will not finish up that town.
Then Abraham asked God again. He said,
What if you find only 40 good people there?
God said,
If I find 40 good people there, I will not finish up that town.
Then Abraham said,
God, please don't get angry with me, but I will say a little bit more. What if you find only 30 good people in that town?
God said,
If I find 30 good people there, I will not finish up that town.
Then Abraham said,
I know that I am being brave to talk to God like this, but what if you find only 20 good people in that town?
God said,
If I find 20 good people there, I will not finish up that town.
Then Abraham said,
God, please don't get angry with me, but I will ask one more question. What if you find only 10 good people in that town?
God said,
If I find 10 good people there, I will not finish up that town.
Then they finished talking, and God left Abraham, and Abraham went back to his camp.
Genesis chapter 19. The men in Sodom were really bad. Verse 1.
Later that day, while the sun was going down, those other two men walked into the town called Sodom. They were God's two angel messengers. Abraham's nephew, the man that was called Lot, he was sitting near the town gate, and he saw those men come into the town. So he got up to meet them, and he got down on his knees and put his face near the ground to show them respect. He said,
Sirs, come and stay in my house. You can wash your feet and sleep here tonight. Then you can go on your way tomorrow morning.
The men said,
No, it's all right. We'll sleep outside in the park.
But Lot kept on asking them strongly to stay with him. So they agreed, and they went with him to his house. Then Lot cooked some flat damper and other food for them, and the men ate it. Before they went to bed, all the men that lived in Sodom, both the young men and the old men, they came and stood around Lot's house. And they all yelled out to Lot. They said,
We are the two men that came to your house today. Bring them out here so we can sleep with them like a man sleeps with his wife.
Lot went out to talk to them and shut the door behind him. He said,
My friends, Please don't do that really bad thing. Look, I've got 2 daughters. They have never been married. They have never slept with any man. Let me bring them out here for you, and you can do whatever you want to do with them. But please, don't do anything bad to these men. They are staying in my house, so I have to keep them safe.
But the men of Sodom said to each other,
This man came from another town to live here, and he wants to tell us what to do. He can't do that.
and they said to Lot,
Get out of our way, or we will do even worse things to you than we will do to those men.
and they pushed hard against Lot so they could get to the door to break it down and grab the men that were inside. But those 2 men were really God's angel messengers, and they quickly opened the door and pulled Lot inside with them. Then they quickly shut the door. Then they used their power to make all the men outside the house go blind, the young men as well as the old men, so that they couldn't find a door to get in.
The angels told Lot to leave Sodom. Genesis chapter 19, verse 12.
Then the 2 men said to Lot,
God heard about all the bad things that the people in this town do. So he sent us to finish it up. You and your family have to get out of this town real soon. Maybe you have sons or more daughters or sons-in-law or other family here. You all have to leave this town before we finish it up.
So Lot went and found the men that his 2 daughters were promised to. He said to them,
God is going to finish up this town, so we have to get out now. Come on, let's go.
But those 2 men thought that Lot was joking, so they didn't go with him. Very early the next morning, the 2 angels tried to get Lot to leave Sodom quickly. They said,
Hurry up, Lot. Get your wife and your 2 daughters and get out of this town. If you don't get out quick, you will die like everyone else.
But Lot didn't hurry. So the angels grabbed Lot's hand and his wife and his 2 daughters, and they quickly pulled them out of the town. You see, God was good to Lot and wanted to save him and his family. As soon as the angels took Lot and his family out of the town, one of the angels told them,
Run away quickly to save your life. Don't look back and don't stop anywhere in the flat country, but keep going until you get to the hill country. If you don't do that, you will die like all the people in Sodom are going to die.
But Lot said to them,
Please, sirs, no, that's too far. You have been very good to me and saved my life, but I can't run fast enough to get to the hill country in time. If I try to do that, the trouble will come before I get there, and I will die too. Look, there is a town over there. It's not too far from me. And it's only a little town with only a few people. Let us go there, and then don't finish up that little town. Then we will be safe.
The angel said,
All right, I will do that for you. I will let you go to that little town, and I will not finish it up. You will be safe there. But go quickly, because I have to wait until you get there before I finish up Sodom.
Later, that little town was called Zor. That name means little.
God burned up Sodom and Gomorrah. Genesis chapter 19, verse 23.
Just after the sun came up, Lot got to Zoar. Then God sent fire down from the sky onto Sodom and Gomorrah, and he sent down burning rock called sulfur with that fire. God burned up those towns, and he burned up the flat country around them too. Everybody that lived in those towns died, and all the plants in that country died too. But Lot's wife turned around and looked back at what was happening to Sodom, and straight away her body turned into a block of salt. Early in the morning, Abraham went to the hill where he talked with God before. He looked down at Sodom and Gomorrah and all the flat country around them, and he saw a lot of smoke, like a really big bushfire. That's how God finished up those towns in the flat country. But he remembered everything he said to Abraham, and he saved Abraham's nephew, Lot. Yes, God took Lot out of Sodom, where Lot lived, before he finished up that town.
Lot's daughters did a bad thing. Genesis chapter 19, verse 30.
Lot was frightened to stay in Zoar, so him and his daughters, they went and lived up in the hill country, in a big hole in the rock called a cave. One day, the oldest daughter said to her sister,
"Our father is old, and we haven't got any kids, and there are no men around here for us to marry. So let's get our father drunk, and then we can pretend to be his wives and sleep with him. Then we can have babies so that we will always have a family."
So that night, they got their father drunk, and the oldest daughter pretended to be his wife, and she slept with him. Lot was so drunk that he didn't know what was happening. The next day, the oldest daughter said to her sister,
"Last night I slept with our father like I was his wife. Let's get him drunk again tonight. Then you go and pretend to be his wife. Then we will both have babies, and we will always have a family."
So that night, they got their father drunk again, and the youngest daughter pretended to be his wife, and she slept with him. And again, Lot was so drunk that he didn't know what was happening. So both of Lot's daughters had babies, and Lot was the father of those babies. Lot's oldest daughter had a son, and she called him Moab. That name means from our father. His mob are called the Moab tribe, and they are still living today. Lot's youngest daughter also had a son, and she called him Ben-Ami. That name means son of my relative. Ben-Ami's mob are called the Ammon tribe, and they are still living today.
Genesis chapter 20. Abraham tried to trick a big boss called Abimelech. Verse 1.
At one time, Abraham moved his camp south to the Negev desert, and he lived between the two towns called Kadesh and Shur. Then later, he moved his camp to a town called Gerar. While Abraham and Sarah were in Gerar, Abraham told everyone that his wife, Sarah, was his sister, not his wife. The big boss of Gerar was called Abimelech. He believed Abraham, so he sent somebody to get Sarah so that he could marry her. God was not happy that Abimelech was going to marry Sarah. So one night he gave Abimelech a dream, and in that dream God told him,
"You are going to die. You took Sarah to be your wife, but she is already married to Abraham."
Abimelech said,
But God, I haven't married Sarah yet. I have not slept with her like a man sleeps with his wife. Me and my people, we haven't done anything wrong. Will you kill us for nothing? Abraham told me himself that Sarah was his sister, and she said that Abraham was her brother. I didn't know that she was already married to him. I didn't want to do anything wrong.
God kept talking to him in that dream. He said,
"Yes, I know that you didn't want to do anything wrong. You didn't know that Sarah was a married woman. That's why I did not let you touch her. I stopped you from doing a bad thing. So now, give Sarah back to Abraham. He is my special man, and he will pray for you, so that you will not die. But I'm telling you, if you don't give her back to Abraham, I will kill you, and I will kill everyone that lives with you."
So early in the morning, Abimelech called a meeting for all his important workers. He told them everything that God said, and they were all very frightened. Then Abimelech sent somebody to get Abraham to come to that meeting. Abimelech said to Abraham,
Look, you have made trouble for me and my people. What did I do to you so that you pay me back with this trouble? You have done a bad thing to us. Why did you do that? Why did you tell us that Sarah is your sister?
Abraham said,
I'm sorry. I thought that nobody here respected God. So I was frightened of you, mob. I reckoned that you would kill me so that you can marry Sarah. But anyway, Sarah really is my sister. We have the same father, but different mothers.
You see, in Abraham's culture, men could marry their half-sisters. Then Abraham said,
God told me to leave my father's country. So we moved around from place to place, and I was frightened of the people. So I told Sarah, be good to me and tell everyone that you are my sister. Then I will be safe.
Then Abimelech did what God told him to do. He gave Sarah back to Abraham, and he also gave him some sheep, and some goats, and some cows, and some bulls, and some workers, both men and women. And Abimelech said to Abraham,
Friend, look around at all my country. You can live anywhere you like in this country.
Then Abimelech said to Sarah,
I'm giving Abraham, your brother, a lot of money to pay for the trouble I gave you. I'm giving him 1,000 pieces of silver money to show your mob and everyone else that you did nothing wrong.
Then Abraham prayed to God and asked him to make Abimelech and his mob better. You see, before, at the time when Abimelech got Sarah so that he could marry her, God made Abimelech sick and stopped all the women in Abimelech's house from having babies. But then God talked to Abimelech, and Abimelech gave Sarah back to Abraham. So then Abraham prayed to God, and God made Abimelech better. And he made Abimelech's wife better. And he made all the women that lived in Abimelech's house better too, so that they had babies again.
Genesis chapter 21. Abraham and Sarah had a son, Isaac. Verse 1.
God was good to Sarah, and he kept his promise to her. And a baby started to grow inside her. Then that baby boy was born at the time that God said he would be born. Abraham was an old man, but Sarah had a baby boy, and Abraham was his father. Abraham called him Isaac. That name means laugh. And when Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham did the young man operation on him, just like God told him to do, to show that Isaac belonged to God. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. Sarah said,
God is giving me something to laugh about now, and everyone that hears the story will be happy with me, and they will laugh too.
She also said,
Nobody reckoned that I can ever have a kid, but look, Abraham is old now, but I had a baby boy, and Abraham is his father.
Abraham sent Hagar and Ishmael away from his camp. Genesis chapter 21, verse 8.
When Isaac was about 3 years old, he stopped drinking Sarah's milk, and Abraham gave him a big party. Then Sarah saw Ishmael laughing at Isaac. Ishmael was the son of Abraham and Hagar. Hagar was Sarah's worker, and she was from Egypt country. Then Sarah said to Abraham,
When you die, my son Isaac has to get all your things. I don't want Ishmael to get anything. He is just the son of a worker woman. So you have to tell that woman and her son to get out of our camp. Send them right away from here.
Abraham was really upset by what Sarah said. Ishmael was his son, so Abraham reckoned it was wrong to send him away. But God said to Abraham,
Don't worry about Ishmael or his mother. You see, the family that I promised you will come from Isaac, not from Ishmael. So listen to Sarah and do what she says. Don't worry, I will give Ishmael a big family too. Later on, his family will grow into a big nation. I will do that for him because he is your son too.
So early the next morning, Abraham got some food and a leather water bag. He put them on Hagar's shoulder, and he sent her and Ishmael out of his camp. They walked around in the desert country near Beersheba. They kept going until there was no water left in the water bag. Then they stopped, and Hagar left Ishmael in the shade of a little tree. And then she went and sat by herself a little way from him, because she thought,
I don't want to watch him die.
And she started to cry out loud. Ishmael was crying too, and God heard him, and he sent an angel messenger from heaven to talk to Hagar. The angel said,
Why are you upset? Don't worry. God has heard Ishmael crying under that tree. Go and take care of him. Listen, I will give him a big family, and they will become a great nation.
Then God showed her a waterhole. So she got up and filled her water bag, and she gave Ishmael a drink. God kept Ishmael safe as he grew up in the desert called Paran. He learned how to use a bow and arrows properly. So he became a good hunter, and later on Hagar got a wife for him from Egypt country.
Abraham and Abimelech made strong promises to each other. Genesis chapter 21, verse 22.
One day, Abimelech went to talk to Abraham. Abimelech was the big boss of the country where Abraham lived, and Phicol, the leader of Abimelech's army, went with him. Abimelech said to Abraham,
You know, you're not one of my people. You came from another place to live here in my country. But I've been good to you and to all your people. So I want you to promise me that you will never try to trick me or my kids or anyone that is born into my family. I want you to promise that you will be good to them. We know that God is very good to you and he helps you with everything you do. So I want you to make that promise to me while God is listening. I want you to tell God to punish you if you break that promise.
So Abraham made that promise to Abimelech. He said those words in the way that Abimelech wanted. But then Abraham also complained to Abimelech. He said,
I've got a problem. Some of your workers took one of my water holes, and then they stopped my workers from getting any water there.
Abimelech said,
I'm sorry, Abraham. I don't know who did that. I never heard about it, and you didn't tell me about it until now.
At that time, Abraham gave Abimelech some of his sheep and goats and cows, and the two men made strong promises to each other. Then Abraham also picked out 7 young female sheep from his animals, and he put them to one side. Abimelech asked him,
Why did you put these 7 sheep to one side? What do you mean by that?
Abraham said,
I want to give you these sheep as a special present. Take them. That's how you can show people that you agree with me, that I dug that water hole and that I own it.
From that time on, that place was called Beersheba. That name means water hole, where they made a promise. It was where Abraham and Abimelech made strong promises to each other. After they made those promises, Abimelech and Phicol went back to their home in Philistia country. Then Abraham showed respect to God there in Beersheba. He called God by his special name Yahweh, and he planted a special tree to remember that place. Yahweh is the true God that lives forever. Abraham and all his people lived for a long time in the country that belonged to the Philistia mob.
Genesis chapter 22. Abraham showed that he really trusted God. Verse 1.
A long time later, God tested Abraham. God wanted to see if Abraham trusted him properly, and if Abraham would do anything God told him to do. God called out,
Abraham.
And Abraham said,
Yes, God, I am listening to you.
Then God said,
I know that you love your son Isaac, and he is your only son. But I want you to take him to the country called Moriah, to one of the mountains that I will show you. I want you to kill Isaac for me, and burn his body on a table made of stones, to show me that you respect me.
Abraham listened to God. So the next morning, Abraham chopped up some wood for the fire and tied the wood onto his donkey. Then he got Isaac and 2 of his workmen, and they all started to go to the place God told him about. They walked for nearly 3 days. Then Abraham looked up and saw the place God told him about. It was still a long way ahead of them. Abraham said to his workmen,
I want you to stay here with the donkey, and me and Isaac, we will go over there to show respect to God. After we do that, we will come back to you.
Abraham put the wood onto Isaac's back for him to carry, and Abraham carried some fire and his knife. As they walked along, Isaac said,
Dad,
Abraham said,
Yes, son.
and Isaac said,
we've got the wood and the fire, but where is the sheep that we are going to burn to show respect to God?
Abraham said,
Son, God will give us the sheep so that we can show him respect.
and they kept on walking together. Then they got to the place that God told Abraham about. And Abraham piled up some stones to make a table with a flat top, and he put the wood on top of it. Then he tied Isaac's hands and feet together, and he put him on top of the wood. Then Abraham picked up his sharp knife, and he was just about to kill Isaac. But God's angel messenger called out to him from heaven. He said,
Abraham, Abraham.
Abraham stopped, and he said,
Yes.
The angel said,
Don't kill that boy. Don't hurt him in any way. Now I know that you respect God so much that you will do anything he tells you to do. You will even kill your only son for God.
Then Abraham looked behind him, and he saw a male sheep with its head stuck in a little tree. He quickly took Isaac off the wood and untied the ropes from him. Then Abraham grabbed that sheep, and he killed it instead of his son, and he burned it on that stone table to show respect to God. And Abraham called that place, God will give you what you need. Even today, people say.
On God's mountain, he will give you what you need.
Then God's angel messenger called out again from heaven to Abraham. He said,
This is what God wants to tell you, Abraham. He says, You listened to me, and you were ready to give me your only son. So now I'm making this really strong promise to you. You can know that I will keep this promise because I am God. I will do really good things for you, and I will give you a really big family. You see, lots of people will be born into your son's family later on, and they will become a really big mob of people. There will be lots and lots of them, just like there are lots of stars in the sky and lots of little bits of sand at the beaches beside the sea. And when other nations get up to fight against them, your family will win, and they will take the towns from those other nations. And I will use your family to do good things for all the nations in the world. I will do all this because you listened to me and you did what I told you to do.
Then Abraham and Isaac walked back to the place where Abraham's workmen were waiting with the donkey. Then they all went back to their camp at Beersheba. Abraham and all his people camped there for a long time.
We haven't yet recorded the rest of Genesis, or the books called Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. Some of the stories in those books tell us these things. Sarah died when she was 127 years old. Abraham died when he was 175 years old. Isaac had a son called Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. God gave Jacob another name. He called him Israel. God took Jacob and his family to live in Egypt. They lived in Egypt for about 400 years and became the nation called Israel. The families that came from his 12 sons became the 12 tribes in the Israel nation. Then God got an Israel man called Moses to take the Israel nation out of Egypt into desert country, and God gave Moses his law for those people. After that, God gave them the country called Canaan. Today we call that country Israel. Sometimes we call the Israel people the Jewish people, or just the Jews.